Do you miss your grandmother?
I do actually, yeah, I do miss my grandmother. And my grandfather, particularly being in Windsor. For me, Windsor is hers. Sometimes I'd come round and I'd have a bit of tea with her because she had the best teas ever, so I used to get well fed.
Please subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it truly means so much to me. On February 3rd, 2026, Buckingham Palace released a brief statement that landed like a thunderclap inside royal circles. Prince William had been named sole beneficiary of a secret royal holding. Not Sandringham, not Balmoral, not Windsor. Something older, hidden, protected for decades by Queen Elizabeth II herself. And when Camilla and her son Tom realized what had been transferred and what had been kept firmly out of reach, the atmosphere inside palace walls shifted fast. This wasn't just land, it was legacy, control, memory. The property, known as the Cedar estate, traces back to 1944, when King George VI quietly secured a secluded stretch in the Chiltern Hills. No announcement, no registry spotlight. For more than 80 years, it existed in near total silence, known only to senior insiders. Inside were wartime letters, private royal correspondence, undisclosed portraits, and sealed recordings of Queen Elizabeth II in conversation with global leaders. It wasn't a tourist site. It was a vault of royal history. And here's what changed everything. Between 2017 and 2021, William had been quietly preparing, walking the grounds with the Queen, reviewing archive materials, learning the responsibility attached to it. No cameras, no headlines, just quiet stewardship. In 2020, Elizabeth locked the estate inside a private covenant trust, separate from the Crown Estate and the Duchy of Cornwall. The activation clause required two triggers: her state funeral and William's formal recognition as heir to institutional responsibility. By February 3rd, 2026, both conditions had been met. The estate passed to William in full and exclusive guardianship, immediate, irreversible. But not everyone welcomed that outcome. Sources say Camilla had floated plans in 2024 for a cultural heritage initiative tied to the estate. Culinary events, curated tours, lifestyle programming.
Her former title, Her Royal Highness, despite the fact that she and Harry stepped away from their royal roles.
Breaking today, Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are going to have no role when Prince William becomes king, and he's already planning this out, and it's really not so much that he said they are not going to have roles.
What about Meghan and Harry? Because there are reports that Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and their children could be set to lose their royal titles if and when Prince William becomes monarch.
You're absolutely right. I think Meghan Markle has been very brazen recently with the use of the HRA.
Your titles are gone. You're going to be Meghan Mountbatten Windsor. Your husband's going to be Harry Mountbatten Windsor. And all your threats of legal action, I think, is something that William will quite rightly stare down. The king might think that this is something he can do, but of course, he no longer officially controls Highgrove. Prince William does. And this was never going to fly.
Prince William will strip Prince Andrew along with all other non-working royals of their HRHs and princely titles when he ascends to the throne. Meghan and Harry, I just had this conversation about Harry and Meghan. I think I was talking to Fox News, and I said, they might not think the rules apply to them, but they are insisting on using titles from the British royal family. And when you do that, whether you like it or not, you are representing the monarchy, and there are some rules that you have to abide by.
The agreement that was made did not remove the title. It restricted the way it was to be used. It was not to be used publicly.
For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to have their titles stripped, as well as
Prince William plans on stripping both Harry and Meghan of their HRH titles once he becomes king.
Tom reportedly explored upscale hospitality concepts and artisan branding tied to the property's identity. Then in late 2025, discussions surfaced about whether parts of the estate could be reclassified under public heritage law, a move that might have introduced shared oversight. William responded without public confrontation. He activated the Covenant Trust. That sealed it. By the time land records updated in early 2026, the transfer was complete. No press battle, no escalation, just paperwork executed with precision. Because in the end, this was never just about acreage. It was about who safeguards the monarchy's private history, and whether that history remains preserved or repositioned. And when the dust settled, the message was unmistakable. The Cedar estate wasn't a business opportunity. It was a responsibility. What makes the transfer explosive is the timing. Documents dated September 8th, 2022, just weeks before the Queen's passing, reveal she reclassified Northacre Hall from a shared Crown asset to a personal sovereign holding. That move allowed her to pass it privately through her will instead of standard succession channels. In Appendix R3, she wrote, "Let Northacre remain with the child who bears the burden of our future. Let it be not merely shelter, but sanctuary." That decision bypassed then Prince Charles and Princess Anne entirely. Inside palace circles, the shock was immediate but silent, like a stone dropped into still water at midnight. Archivists say this was the first personal transfer of its kind since Queen Victoria's Highland reallocation in 1872. Only 2 living witnesses reportedly knew.
Because he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything. Like, Spotify literally were like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? He doesn't know what working is because he's never had to work. He's just a guy who likes to show up at events and shake hands, but it's like, that's not going to get you paid $100 million a year. And the thing that I've found so devastating for him over the past couple of weeks, I've spoken about both of these on my show, is that there were 2 media organizations who have been staying loyal to Harry and Meghan, and they were People Magazine and Us Weekly, right? And I care about the stuff. I know you care about the stuff too, because I used to be, in the tabloid media. And it's like, those 2 magazines are like the 2 last great surviving American tabloids. And the new editor of Us Weekly is a guy called Dan Wakeford, who used to be the editor of People Magazine. And he has basically gone to Us Weekly and said, Harry and Meghan, we're going to be your champions, we're going to be your supporters, and we're sort of competing with People Magazine, right? So they're competing against each other.
Lady Sarah Chatsworth and the Queen's legal advisor, Sir Alistair Denholm. The sealed envelope carried just 3 words: "For the reign after me." But while those plans were locked away, Camilla and Tom were not standing still. By 2023, leaked notes show they had quietly pushed to fold Northacre Hall into what they called a royal culinary heritage venture. Publicly, it was framed as a farm-to-table revival. Privately, it had backing from luxury investors in the UAE and a Paris-based venture firm. The proposal included a 5-star boutique hotel, a heritage cooking school, and a full rebrand as a luxury Windsor destination.
Yeah, so we have to go back 5 years, and this is when they first stepped away from their lives as working royals, and so they struck an agreement with the late Queen to walk away. And as part of that agreement, they said they would keep their HRH and their technically styles, just that's the nomenclature. They would keep Her Royal Highness, His Royal Highness, but they would not use them. And this follows in the past practice. Prince Andrew, when he stepped away from royal life after scandal, he still has the HRH. He does not use it. Everything seemed fine. And then this week, as you said, she was on this podcast with her friend, Jamie Kern-Lima, who showed a gift basket. And there was the card that had the HRH. And it's like, and everyone kind of went, uh-oh. And I think that Harry and Meghan's camp really very quickly realized this could be a problem, because they have been talking about the fact that they are separating things. They're saying, oh, we're using it in our private life, but we're not using it commercially.
A July 2025 feasibility study valued Northacre's licensing rights at over £48 million across 10 years. One courtier summed it up bluntly. Camilla believed she had soft-bought the estate through influence. The Queen outmaneuvered her from beyond the grave. Then came the pressure campaign.
I think there'd be plenty of support to see Prince Harry and Meghan Markle lose those titles.
Well.
Now, Meghan Markle's very short-lived podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder, has picked up 2 honours in the annual Signal Awards for podcasting. So despite being really a flop, Meghan's podcast picked up 2 nods at the Signal Awards, and Confessions won a gold award in the Business People and Entrepreneurs Shaping Culture category of the Signal Awards, which aims to recognise meaningful podcasts. Surely there's some backlash to this decision, but were you surprised? What did you make of it?
Oh, well, I do feel that Meghan's building this empire of perception. It's not actually what the talent is, it's more the smoke and mirrors. I think she's very good at that, and I don't know how involved she was in the entry or who the other contenders were. I do feel a bit sorry for them, because no doubt there would have been probably some pretty talented people doing some podcasts, and sort of Meghan steamed in and won. But it's a show that flopped. It vanished pretty quickly. So the fact that it's won the award, I think sort of highlights what type of award that is.
Anonymous opinion pieces appeared late in 2025, hinting that the monarchy had overinvested in heritage assets and needed generational recalibration. Insiders linked the messaging to Camilla's longtime fixer, Maurice Lull, known for operating through quiet back channels, subtle, strategic.
You have to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Scamelot. They were at the Sundance Film Festival. I mean, what a fall from grace. Okay. They're at a film festival doing the red carpet like wannabe influencers and celebrities when they were real royalty, right? People would have been flying to see them. Celebrities who were at Sundance would have been jumping through rings of fire and hoops just to hang out with her if she were still a duchess, right? If she were still a duchess and living over in, London eating crumpets and scones, people would be jumping through hoops to hang out with her. And now she's having to do these desperate PR stunts. So she's invented a new career. She's decided that there's not a lot of interest for her on camera. People aren't interested in any of her shows. They bomb, they do terribly. So she's produced a film on the Girl Scouts program.
Calculated. In a last attempt, Tom reportedly sought a lease inquiry on North Acre's southern orchard tract, calling it unused land. The Duchy of Cornwall's legal team denied it immediately, citing inheritance protections. Palace sources say Camilla's reaction wasn't loud. It was colder than that, controlled fury at being outplayed. And North Acre wasn't even the final chapter. In January 2026, Princess Anne conducted a detailed review of the Queen's private correspondence inside Windsor's Oak Room. What she found, folded 3 times inside a leather folio marked W. William George, changed everything. Clarence Hill Estate. Purchased quietly in 1947 by King George VI, this secluded property sits deep in the Chiltern Hills, accessed only by a long private drive miles from any public road. It was designed as an off-book reserve for direct heirs.
Harry and Meghan to leave royal duties. It was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it. Basically, the HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family because it denotes a level of I guess, respect in the public, and also it's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honour to have an HRH.
Absolutely.
So the fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, I think is absolutely infuriating in Buckingham Palace. And there was a very interesting source inside, close to the Prince of Wales, who spoke to the Daily Beast. He said that William is furious, unsurprisingly, and he's also already formulating plans to deal with this when he becomes monarch. I think that he feels that King Charles...
Shielded from Parliament, shielded from funding battles, shielded from noise. The Queen's handwritten directive was clear. I entrust Clarence Hill to my grandson, William, in full title and spirit, free of encumbrance, free of shadow. Let it remain outside the Crown estate. Immune to politics, immune to scandal. This land is a covenant, not a commodity. That phrase, immune to scandal, carried weight. Sources say the Queen had grown cautious about public controversies surrounding Prince Andrew and the media turbulence surrounding Prince Harry. To her, legacy required insulation, a safeguard, a line in the sand. Clarence Hill wasn't just land. It was protection. It was positioning. It was a final, deliberate firewall built by a monarch who clearly saw the storms forming long before anyone else did. Clarence Hill was meant to be William and Catherine's sanctuary, the ethical and dynastic compass for the monarchy's future. Camilla learned about the transfer on January 20th. Sources say she immediately called in her legal team at Highgrove, with Tom right beside her. At the time, Tom had just taken a hit, a publishing setback tied to controversy around his food brand's misuse of the royal crest. The timing was brutal, but Clarence Hill wasn't sacred in her eyes. It looked like opportunity. Leaked internal emails later revealed her vision in her own words. Imagine the launch. From the Queen's garden to yours. By January 23rd, paperwork was already drafted under a newly registered company, Hill & Crown Limited. Tom listed as executive director. The pitch? Rebrand Clarence Hill into a boutique hospitality and agricultural empire built around regenerative luxury, climate branding, and royal sustainability. In this version, Tom becomes the polished face of green aristocracy. Soil over scandal. There was just one problem. The codicil had already been notarized. The legal transfer into the Duchy of Cornwall Trust was complete. Hill & Crown Limited showed up 3 weeks too late. Then January 28th detonated the whole scheme. An anonymous whistleblower, believed to be a former aide.
Harry and Meghan as possible. And that's certainly a possibility. I mean, if I were them, I would grow up and I'd think, oh my God, like, you stole the opportunity for me to live history. You stole the opportunity for me to meet and spend time with the greatest monarch that has ever lived in Queen Elizabeth II. It's certainly possible. But look, William has absolutely no intention of allowing Archie and Lilibet back into the fold. At the moment, based on where his head is at, all of their HRH titles will be stripped. So Harry will lose his HRH, Meghan will lose his HRH, Archie will lose the HRH, Lily will lose the HRH. And the reason that will be given is that he wants to slim down the monarchy. But really, this is a lot about personal vengeance.
Danish monarch Queen Margrethe II is stripping 4 of her grandchildren of their prince and princess titles. The Danish monarch has changed her grandchildren's titles.
Sent the internal Hill and Crown business deck straight to the Lord Chancellor's office, flagging what they called attempted commercial trespass on a sealed royal legacy. The deck laid it all out. Logo mock-ups stamped over Clarence Hill's Edwardian facade, luxury projections, corporate rebrand strategies. It wasn't subtle. The backlash inside royal circles was immediate. William confronted Camilla at Windsor during what was supposed to be a private lunch, marking Catherine's recovery. According to household sources, the exchange was brief but cutting. William reportedly said, "Clarence Hill does not exist to be bottled, branded, or sold. It is the last sanctuary of my grandmother's soul, and I will protect it as I protect my wife and children." Camilla left before dessert. Within 48 hours, Hill and Crown Limited was dissolved. Tom quietly stepped back from 3 public engagements, citing stress-related fatigue. No public statements, no dramatic press conference, just silence, the kind that says everything. King Charles avoided direct involvement, but later told Princess Anne, "Elizabeth always knew who would hold the crown, not just wear it." That line stuck. But Clarence Hill wasn't the final front. Greystone Downs was next. A 400-acre protected estate of ancient woodland, anchored by a Tudor hunting lodge from 1578 and a private stone chapel lined with 17th century relics. Queen Elizabeth had preserved Greystone for decades as a moral anchor. Not just land, but living memory. Leaving it to William wasn't about convenience. It was about character. Camilla and Tom reportedly saw numbers. Valued near £80 million, Greystone Downs became their most ambitious target yet. Documents recovered from a former financial aid outlined a bold proposal: £5,000 per night eco-lodges, curated farm-to-table dining hosted by Tom, a members-only royal culinary circle aimed at elite clients from the UAE and East Asia, all branded as a Windsor sanctuary. It was heritage dressed as high-end hospitality. Behind the scenes, Camilla's legal liaison, Piers Mallory, reportedly examined the will for any clause hinting at shared custodianship, any thread, any technical gap. Meanwhile, Tom registered another holding entity, Stag Crown Hospitality Limited, in Luxembourg, weeks before the will became public. Draft plans included converting the estate chapel into a mindfulness retreat and turning former royal stables into a vineyard spa concept.
Oh no, it will be active. It won't just be, I'm ignoring this. It will be, your titles are stripped, you are gone, you are banished. He doesn't even want Harry at his coronation. I mean, that is extraordinary. That shows you how far things have fallen. I don't think there is a way back. I really don't. I guess you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Will a divorce change things? Maybe. But remember, Prince William set Harry these very, very clear red lines, and he crossed every single one of them. Right. And the one for him, Link, that was so personal.
I really do feel it will happen. And I think it's important to note that it won't be a revenge play by William. It's very much a reforming play, because when he's King William V, when his father passes on, he's the monarch, he's more aware than anyone, I think, that the monarchy and the royal family have to provide value to the taxpayer and also the Commonwealth as well. That it's not, we don't just keep the royal family because we've always had the royal family. They very much have to prove their worth. And he wants to really push aside anyone who's been freeloading or using their titles for commercial gain. And we know the late Queen had said to Meghan, forbade her from using the HRH title. And of course, Meghan's just blithely got ahead and done that and tried to commercialise it wherever she can. But it's a reform play by William. I think he just wants to keep it a very tight monarchy, but also he wants to reward the people who do actually do the work and do it quietly without any fanfare. Princess Anne is a perfect example of that.
For critics inside the palace, that crossed a line. Greystone wasn't idle land. It was preserved on purpose. Then Princess Anne intercepted a confidential email between Camilla's lawyer and a peer in the House of Lords. Details of the correspondence remain sealed, but insiders say it referenced potential heritage collaboration mechanisms. That phrase alone raised alarms, because by then, the pattern was clear. This wasn't about stewardship, it was about control. Every time a move was attempted, the paperwork had already been sealed. These estates weren't vulnerable. They had been shielded years in advance. And with each blocked maneuver, one message grew louder inside palace walls. Some legacies are not for sale. Princess Anne showed William what she had uncovered. Calm, controlled, precise. She's not challenging the crown, Anne reportedly said. She's challenging mother's ethics. That shifted everything. William immediately convened a closed-door meeting with the Privy Purse. What followed wasn't emotional, it was surgical. On February 3rd, 2026, a sealed codicil written by Queen Elizabeth and notarized in 2021 was released to the Royal Archives. It explicitly barred any commercial conversion or brand exploitation of Greystone Downs without William's direct approval. Clear, personal, final. Elizabeth hadn't reacted to pressure. She had anticipated it. When Camilla read the document, witnesses say she went silent, then quietly stated, "Even in death, she leaves me caged." William didn't argue. He acted. 2 days later, he visited Greystone Downs with Catherine and their children. No press conference, no speeches, just a family standing firmly on protected ground. But Greenheath Estate delivered the real shock.
Meghan's actually threatened that she's going to take out some sort of terrible thing if it does happen, that she won't allow that to happen. But we'll see what the fight is when it gets going. But they have pushed themselves so far. They have behaved so badly. They still are. And they're taking what happens within the royal family and smashes it because they want to win, especially Meghan. And she's drawn out of Harry all this nastiness that he does exactly the same. And we can't have him going round. We can't have him going round to somewhere where William is going round and he sort of rushes to be there first, so he looks good. And he then says to his father, "Look, I can be really helpful." In Canada, he said, didn't he, just a few weeks ago. So he's just playing. It's just playing. And Meghan just thinks she's too wonderful to be left out of it. And she will win because she'll go to court if she doesn't keeps her title. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to lose your title. But I do really hope that it's taken away. I mean, she's complained for over 6 years now. What a terrible time she had. She was nearly wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. Then what's she trying to get back in there somewhere? Nobody wants her. She's not going to listen to anything she's been told.
Camilla had reportedly believed it was an unused tract of land. It wasn't. It came with a £37 million private trust built quietly over decades by the Queen herself, a financial shield hidden in plain sight. Plans had reportedly been forming for a high-end culinary wellness retreat backed by foreign investors. Promotional concepts drafted, guest lists outlined. The machine was already warming up. Then on January 30th, 2026, Princess Anne finalized the transfer under Crown Trust Authority. Backdated weeks earlier, William received full rights. The £37 million trust went with it. That evening, he also received something powerful, a private audio recording of Queen Elizabeth outlining her wishes. Greenheath was to remain dedicated to environmental education and youth rehabilitation under William and Catherine's patronage. Not commercial, not corporate, purpose-driven. Emergency meetings followed. There was talk of legal challenges. But within 48 hours, King Charles issued a private warning. Any attempt to undermine Elizabeth's will would be seen as an attack on the crown's memory itself. Public reaction was swift when word reached the press. Legal scholars and royal historians pushed back hard against any suggestion of contesting the late Queen's directives. And while headlines churned, Catherine quietly appeared at a Windsor Children's Hospice. No rebuttal, no drama, just steady presence. Then came the defining image. At 9:46 a.m. on February 3rd, William arrived alone at Greenheath's gates. Navy coat, one aide, no spectacle. He signed the charter of the Greenheath Royal Future Trust, permanently closing the estate to commercial exploitation. Calm, measured, done. As he finished, a Rolls-Royce appeared at the edge of the property. Camilla stepped out briefly, watching in silence. She didn't approach. She didn't speak. By that evening, a scheduled royal culinary event was canceled. A brief statement followed expressing support for the King's reaffirmation of Queen Elizabeth's legacy. Inside palace walls, the message was undeniable. Every attempt had been anticipated. Every door had already been locked, but the story wasn't finished. Then came Oakidge Estate, the final word. On February 3rd, a sealed envelope bearing Elizabeth II's royal cipher confirmed Oakidge had been transferred to William. Unlike Balmoral or Sandringham, this wasn't tied to Crown Estate rules. It was a private holding protected by a special clause in the Queen's will. A secluded sanctuary bordering the Thames Forest, once used by George VI, complete with a hidden Tudor chapel, valued at £118 million. But the number wasn't the point. Oak Ridge was Elizabeth's refuge, a place of reflection during family storms. For William, it was childhood memories and early lessons in duty. It was legacy in its purest form. Whispers surfaced about challenging the transfer through technical funding arguments. William immediately ordered a forensic audit of restoration records dating back decades. But Elizabeth had already sealed the outcome. Inside her will was a clause titled Anticipatory Obstruction, blocking challenges from anyone outside the direct Windsor bloodline. When it was read aloud to senior royals, the room fell silent. The message was unmistakable. This wasn't oversight, it was design.
The pandemic, Harry and Meghan, absconded to California to stay at Tyler Perry's house, and Tyler Perry doesn't seem to be doing so well right now. But they left 5 years ago. And I imagine Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's kids are going to Google themselves someday, maybe when they get into middle school or high school, and they're going to go, oh shit, we're royalty? You didn't tell us? We're in the house with Doria Ragland and, playing in the yard. We could have been royals. You know what I'm saying? Those kids are going to be so pissed someday. If I grew up, it's almost like, oh, what was that movie where she was kept inside or the kid was kept inside or something? It's like, you're going to Google yourself. Was it Room or something? Room. You're going to Google yourself, or like a Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She's going to discover she can walk. It's going to be like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's kids are going to discover we're royalty. You assholes didn't tell us.
That evening, William and Catherine brought their children to Oakidge as its new stewards. As they walked the grounds, young George reportedly asked, "Will this be ours forever?" William's answer was steady, confident. Soon after, a final letter from the Queen's solicitor arrived. Inside were Elizabeth's own words. Oakidge belongs not to power, but to patience. Let the one who bears the weight of the crown's future carry it forward. Signed, Elizabeth R. That passage ended every argument before it could begin. Step back and look at what Elizabeth accomplished. She didn't just pass down property. She built a legal fortress, clause by clause, estate by estate. She anticipated commercial proposals, legal maneuvering, internal rivalry, and she blocked them years before they surfaced. This wasn't emotional, it was strategic. She chose William for one reason: stewardship. Not ambition, not profit, stewardship. His response has been consistent. No public battles, no escalation, just action. Signing charters, walking the land, letting the framework his grandmother built speak for him. And it spoke loudly. Camilla's ambitions weren't defeated through confrontation. They were made structurally impossible. Every proposal, every rebrand concept, every attempt at shared custodianship, anticipated, neutralized. As one longtime footman put it, this wasn't just a house, it was the Queen's final chess move. And it was precise. For William, these estates aren't trophies. They're obligations. Preservation over profit, duty over display, continuity over commerce. Elizabeth understood something simple. Legacy isn't measured in revenue. It's measured in integrity. William didn't just inherit land. He inherited responsibility. He inherited trust. And he inherited the certainty that the woman who knew him best believed he would protect what others might have tried to monetize. That's the real story. If you've been following this from the beginning, drop your thoughts below. Do you think the Queen saw everything coming? And what do you think William will do next? Subscribe, because this chapter may be closed, but the next move is just beginning.